The rain hammered against the concrete as Amara's bare feet slapped against the cold floor of the parking garage. Her heart was a drum in her chest, each beat screaming one word: run. Amara, I know you're here. His voice echoed through the structure, that familiar tone that used to whisper sweet things now twisted into something venomous. She ducked behind a concrete pillar, her wet dress clinging to her skin, the fabric torn at the shoulder from where he'd grabbed her in the restaurant. Her phone was gone. Her shoes were somewhere back on the street. All she had was the terror coursing through her veins and the desperate need to disappear. The parking garage was filled with luxury vehicles, their polished surfaces reflecting the dim fluorescent lights. Mercedes, BMW, Bentley, the cars of people who lived in a different world. A world where women didn't run barefoot from the men who claimed to love them. She heard his footsteps getting closer and made a split-second decision. A sleek black sedan sat in the corner, its windows tinted dark. Without thinking, Amara tried the back door. It opened. She threw herself inside, pulling the door closed as quietly as her shaking hands would allow, and immediately dropped to the floor, curling herself into the smallest shape possible. The leather smelled expensive, and the carpet beneath her cheek was soft and clean. She pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle her breathing. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. Amara! His voice was right outside now, bouncing off the concrete walls. Stop playing games. You know you can't hide from me. You know you always come back. Tears streamed down her face as she heard him walking between the cars, his footsteps deliberate and slow. He was hunting her, like he always did, like she'd let him do for 3 years before she finally found the courage to run. The footsteps grew closer, then stopped. Amara held her breath, her entire body trembling. Please don't look. Please don't see. Please don't find me. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps moved away, growing fainter until they disappeared entirely. But she didn't move. She'd made that mistake before, thinking she was safe when he was just waiting for her to reveal herself. Minutes passed. The rain continued its assault on the garage roof. Amara's breathing slowly steadied, though her heart still raced. Maybe he'd given up. Maybe he'd left. Maybe she could. The driver's door opened. Amara's blood turned to ice. She pressed herself harder against the floor, making herself as small as possible. But there was nowhere to hide in the footwell of a car. The door closed. The engine started with a quiet purr. The car began to move. Oh God. Oh God. What had she done? She'd hidden in someone's car, and now that person was driving, and what would they do when they found her? Would they call the police? Would they throw her out onto the street where he might still be waiting? The car turned smoothly, navigating the parking garage with ease. Amara stayed frozen, her mind racing through impossible scenarios. Maybe they wouldn't notice. Maybe she could wait until the car stopped and slip out. Maybe, don't be afraid. The voice was male, calm, and came from directly above her. Amara's eyes flew open. You're safe now. She couldn't stay hidden anymore. Slowly, she lifted her head and found herself looking at the back of the driver's seat. In the rearview mirror, a pair of dark eyes met hers. The man's face was partially shadowed, but she could make out sharp features and an expression that was unreadable. I'm sorry, Amara stammered, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to. I was just... You were running. It wasn't a question. The car emerged from the parking garage into the rain-soaked Seoul night. Neon signs reflected off the wet streets in brilliant colors. The man drove with one hand on the wheel, completely composed despite having discovered a stranger hiding in his back seat. Please, Amara whispered. Please don't make me get out. Not yet. Just drive a little farther. Please. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he reached forward and pressed a button on the dashboard. The door locks engaged with a solid click. No one will make you do anything, he said quietly. Amara didn't know whether to feel relieved or more terrified. She slowly pulled herself up from the floor and onto the seat, her wet dress leaving marks on the leather. In the mirror, she got a better look at the driver. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair styled precisely and wearing what looked like an expensive suit. Everything about him spoke of control and power. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who doesn't like seeing scared women in parking garages." He took a turn smoothly. "Who was he?" "The man looking for you." Amara's throat tightened. "No one. It doesn't matter." "It matters." His eyes found hers in the mirror again. "You don't run like that from no one." She looked down at her hands, noticing the bruise forming on her wrist. She quickly pulled her sleeve down to cover it, but the movement caught his attention. "Did he hurt you?" That wasn't the question. Amara felt tears threatening again. There was something about this stranger's quiet authority that made her want to tell the truth, to finally say out loud what she'd been hiding for so long. "He's my ex-boyfriend," she said softly. "I tried to leave him tonight, at a restaurant. He didn't take it well." The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Does he know where you live?" "Yes, he has keys. He has everything." A bitter laugh escaped her. "I have nothing. No phone, no shoes, no plan. I just ran." The car turned onto a quieter street, away from the busy nightlife district. Rain continued to stream down the windows, creating a cocoon of sound around them. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara." "Amara," he repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "My name is Kang Joon-seok, and I'm going to help you." Before she could respond, another car pulled up alongside them at a red light. Amara's heart seized when she recognized the driver, then realized it wasn't him, just someone who looked similar. She pressed back against the seat, trying to become invisible again. "Breathe," Joon-seok said calmly. "You're safe. You don't understand. He won't stop. He never stops. He'll find me, and when he does, he won't." The certainty in his voice made her look up. In the mirror, his eyes held hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "Trust me, Amara. Whoever hurt you won't touch you again." The light turned green, and they drove deeper into Seoul's wealthy districts. The buildings grew taller, the cars on the street more expensive. They pulled into an underground garage of a residential building that looked like it housed millionaires. The moment the car stopped, Amara heard footsteps approaching. She tensed, ready to run again, but Joon-seok held up a hand. "Wait!" Two men in dark suits appeared at the car doors. They opened them simultaneously, and Amara saw them register her presence with barely concealed surprise. One of them reached for something in his jacket, but Joon-seok's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Stand down." The man froze. Both men looked at Joon-seok with expressions that were equal parts confused and obedient. Joon-seok stepped out of the car, adjusting his suit jacket. "Ms. Amara will be staying with us. She's under my protection. No one asks questions. No one makes her uncomfortable. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they said in unison. Amara climbed out of the car on shaking legs, suddenly aware of how she must look. Barefoot, soaked, dress torn, probably with mascara running down her face. The guards, however, looked at her with nothing but professional neutrality. Joon-seok gestured toward an elevator. "This way." As they walked, Amara's mind raced. Who was this man? The way those guards had responded to him, the building they were in, the car he drove. This wasn't normal. People didn't just have security details for no reason. The elevator rose smoothly, displaying floor numbers that kept climbing. When it finally stopped, they stepped directly into a penthouse apartment that took Amara's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering Seoul skyline. The interior was all clean lines and expensive furniture. Everything perfectly placed like a photograph from an architecture magazine. "The guest suite is through there," Joon-seok said, pointing to a hallway. "You'll find clothes in the closet and whatever else you need. Take a shower. Rest. We'll talk in the morning." Amara stood frozen in the entrance, dripping water onto the marble floor. "I don't understand. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Joon-seok turned to face her fully for the first time. In the apartment's lighting, she could see him clearly now. He was handsome in a severe way, with features that looked like they'd been carved from stone. But it was his eyes that caught her, dark and watchful, with something in their depths that spoke of understanding pain that mirrored her own. "Sometimes the right thing to do is obvious," he said simply. "You needed help. I can provide it. That's all that matters tonight. But I can't pay you. I don't have anything. I'm not asking you to." He walked toward what looked like a home office. "The house rules are simple. Don't leave without telling my security team. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't contact anyone from your old life. Can you follow those rules?" Amara nodded slowly. "Good." He paused in the doorway. "Get some rest, Amara. You're safe here. That's a promise." As he disappeared into the office, leaving her alone in the vast living room, Amara felt the full weight of the night crash down on her. Her legs gave out, and she sank onto the nearest chair, finally allowing herself to cry properly. Not the terrified, silent tears from the parking garage, but deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere dark and locked away. She'd escaped. She was safe. A stranger with kind eyes and an air of danger had plucked her from her worst nightmare and brought her to this impossible place. None of it made sense. But for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't afraid of the door opening. She wasn't afraid of footsteps in the hallway. She wasn't afraid of angry voices or sudden movements. She was afraid of what came next. The guest suite was larger than her entire previous apartment. Amara stood in the doorway, taking in the king-sized bed with its pristine white linens, the sitting area with a view of the city, the bathroom that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. The closet that Joon-seok had mentioned was actually a walk-in space filled with women's clothing in various sizes, all with tags still attached. Her hands shook as she selected clothes and made her way to the bathroom. The shower was a glass enclosure with multiple heads and controls that looked complicated enough to require a manual. But once she figured it out and stepped under the hot water, Amara felt something inside her begin to unravel. She watched the water at her feet run gray with dirt and rain, then clear again. She washed her hair 3 times. She stayed until the water began to cool. When she finally emerged and wrapped herself in a towel that was softer than anything she'd ever owned, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The bruise on her wrist had darkened. There was another on her upper arm. A small cut on her lip that she'd forgotten about. The evidence of her escape, written on her skin. But her eyes looked different. Still scared, yes. Still uncertain. But alive in a way they hadn't been in years. Amara dressed in the simplest clothes she could find, soft gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt, and climbed into the massive bed. The sheets smelled like lavender. The mattress felt like sleeping on a cloud. Through the window, Seoul sparkled like a galaxy of earthbound stars. She thought she'd be too wired to sleep, but exhaustion pulled her under almost immediately. Her last conscious thought was of Joon-seok's voice in the darkness of the car. "You're safe now." She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The running, the car, the stranger who'd become her unexpected savior. Amara ventured out of the guest suite cautiously. The apartment looked different in daylight, somehow even more impressive. She followed the coffee smell to a kitchen that was all marble countertops and stainless steel appliances. Joon-seok stood at the counter, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, reading something on a tablet. He looked up when she entered. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted. "Thank you. For everything." He gestured to a seat at the kitchen island. "Coffee? Please." As he poured, Amara noticed his movements were precise and controlled, like everything else about him. He set the cup in front of her along with cream and sugar, then leaned against the counter across from her. "We need to discuss your situation," he said. Amara's stomach tightened. "Are you going to make me leave?" "No." The word was firm. "But you need to understand what staying means. Your ex-boyfriend, does he have connections? Money? Resources to find you? He works in finance. He has money, yes, and friends. But I don't know if he'll look for you," Joon-seok interrupted. "Men like that always do. They don't accept losing control." The way he said it made Amara wonder what experiences had taught him that lesson. She wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup, grateful for something to hold on to. What do you suggest I do? Stay here. Let me handle the situation. But you barely know me. Why would you? Do you need a reason? Amara met his eyes. Most people do. Most people want something. A ghost of something. Maybe sadness, maybe understanding, crossed Joon-seok's face. I'm not most people. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened almost imperceptibly. I have to go out for a few hours. My security team will be here. If you need anything, ask them. Joon-seok, Amara said as he turned to leave. He paused. What do you do? For work. I mean, he was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much truth to share. I run a security and logistics company. Import-export primarily. It keeps me busy. It wasn't the whole truth. Amara could tell from the way he said it, from the way those guards had responded to him last night, from the fact that he had a security team for his personal residence. But she didn't push. She wasn't in a position to demand answers, and part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know. After Joon-seok left, Amara explored the penthouse more thoroughly. The office he'd disappeared into last night was locked. Most of the other rooms were impersonal, decorated beautifully but without any personal touches that might reveal who their owner really was. The only exception was the main bedroom, which she glimpsed through an open door. Even there, everything was immaculate. No photos. No clutter. Nothing that spoke of a life lived, only a life maintained. She spent the day in the guest suite, watching the city below, trying to process everything that had happened. Around noon, one of the security guards knocked and brought her lunch. A carefully prepared meal that looked like it came from a restaurant. She tried to eat but managed only a few bites. Her mind kept circling back to the same questions. What was she doing here? How long could this last? What happened when Joon-seok got tired of playing savior to a stranger? And the most troubling question of all, who exactly had she placed her trust in? Don't forget to like this video if you're invested in Amara's story. And drop a comment below telling me what you think about Joon-seok. Is he a hero or is there more to his story? The afternoon faded into evening. Amara watched the sunset paint the city in shades of orange and pink, then watched those colors give way to the artificial lights of the night. She was drifting off on the guest suite sofa when she heard the front door open. Joon-seok's voice, low and controlled, drifted down the hallway. He was speaking to someone in Korean, too quickly for Amara to catch more than a few words. But she didn't need to understand the language to recognize the tone. He was giving orders. When the other voice left and the door closed, Amara emerged from the guest suite. Joon-seok stood in the living room, loosening his tie. He looked tired in a way he hadn't this morning. Is everything okay? She asked. He glanced up, and something in his expression softened slightly when he saw her. Yes, just business complications. You look like you could use some coffee, or something stronger. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Coffee sounds good. They ended up in the kitchen again, and this time Amara made the coffee. It felt strange, moving around this expensive space like she belonged here, but also somehow right. When she handed Joon-seok his cup, their fingers brushed, and she felt a jolt of something she couldn't name. I did some checking today, Joon-seok said, settling onto one of the kitchen stools. Your ex-boyfriend filed a missing persons report. Amara's blood ran cold. He what? It's a tactic. Makes him look like the concerned boyfriend while giving him an excuse to involve police in finding you. Joon-seok's jaw tightened. But it won't work. I have people who can make sure the report goes nowhere. You have people who can do that? He met her eyes steadily. I have people who can do many things. The implication hung in the air between them. Amara should have been afraid. This man clearly had power and connections that went beyond any legitimate business. But instead of fear, she felt something closer to relief. For 3 years, she'd been powerless against someone who used his charm and connections to isolate and control her. Now she had someone equally powerful on her side. Thank you, she said quietly. Joon-seok studied her over his coffee cup. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You've done more for me in 24 hours than anyone has in years. Then you've been surrounded by the wrong people. I know that now. Amara looked down at her own cup. I don't understand why you're doing this. And please don't tell me it's just the right thing. People don't upend their lives for strangers because it's the right thing. Joon-seok was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more personal than she'd heard it before. When I was young, my mother was in a situation similar to yours. My father was difficult, violent. She had nowhere to go, no one to help her. By the time someone did, it was almost too late. He set his cup down carefully. So when I saw you in that parking garage, running scared, hiding in my car, I saw her, and I decided I wouldn't be one of the people who did nothing. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. I'm sorry. About your mother. She survived. She's safe now. That's what matters. He stood, straightening his shoulders as if shaking off the vulnerability he'd just shown. You should eat something. You barely touched your lunch. How did you know that? The security team reports to me. Right? Because she was living in the home of a man who had security teams and people who could do many things. Amara should probably be more concerned about that. But when Joon-seok moved to the refrigerator and began pulling out ingredients for what looked like a simple meal, she found herself more intrigued than worried. You cook? She asked. I find it relaxing, and I don't trust many people enough to let them in my home regularly. So I learned. He glanced at her. Do you? I used to love it. Before. She trailed off. Before he made you stop? Amara nodded. Her ex had criticized everything she cooked, made her feel incompetent in the kitchen, until she'd stopped trying. Another small way he'd taken pieces of her away. Then we'll cook together, Joon-seok said simply. Come here. You can help. They fell into an easy rhythm, Joon-seok giving quiet instructions, Amara following them. They made a simple stir-fry with vegetables and rice, nothing fancy, but the act of creating something together felt significant somehow. Meaningful in a way that went beyond the food. As they ate at the kitchen island, Amara found herself studying Joon-seok more carefully. In the soft kitchen lighting, he looked younger, less severe. There were small details she hadn't noticed before. A thin scar along his jawline, the way his hair fell across his forehead when he wasn't actively maintaining his controlled appearance, the graceful strength in his hands. What? He asked, catching her looking. I'm trying to figure you out. Any conclusions? You're more complicated than you seem. That small smile appeared again. Most people are. But not everyone saves strangers and then cooks them dinner. Perhaps I'm lonely, he said lightly, but there was truth underneath the words. Amara thought about the impersonal apartment, the lack of photos, the locked office, the life that seemed to revolve entirely around work and control. Are you? Lonely? Joon-seok met her eyes. Aren't we all? The moment stretched between them, charged with something unspoken. Then his phone buzzed, shattering it. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. I need to take this. Excuse me. He disappeared into his office, and Amara was left alone with the remains of their meal and the echo of his words. She cleaned up the kitchen, finding a strange comfort in the mundane task. When she finished, she wandered to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at Seoul's nightscape. Somewhere out there, her ex was looking for her, filing reports, playing the victim, probably charming police officers and enlisting his friends in the search for his missing girlfriend. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, standing in Joon-seok's fortress of an apartment, she felt insulated from that threat. Was that naive? Probably. But for now, she allowed herself to feel safe. The days began to blur together in a strange routine. Amara would wake to find Joon-seok already gone for work. She'd spend her days reading books from his extensive library, watching the city below, and trying to figure out what she was supposed to do with her life now that she'd escaped her old one. Joon-seok would return in the evenings, and they'd cook dinner together. Sometimes they talked, Small conversations about books or music or nothing important. Sometimes they ate in comfortable silence. Afterward, he'd retreat to his office for work while she returned to the guest suite. It was a holding pattern, a suspended moment outside of real life, and Amara knew it couldn't last forever. On the fifth night, she found the courage to ask the question that had been haunting her. How long can I stay here? Joon-seok looked up from the vegetables he was chopping. As long as you need to. That's not a real answer. It's the only one I have. He set down the knife. Where else would you go? I don't know. Maybe I could find a job. Get my own place. He'd find you. The certainty in his voice sent a chill through her. You seem very sure of that. I am. Joon-seok's expression was grave. Men like him don't give up. They see women as possessions, not people. He'll keep looking until he finds you or until he's made to stop. And how do you make someone like that stop? You make it very clear that the cost of continuing is too high. There was something dark in Joon-seok's eyes when he said it. Something that reminded Amara that this man was not just a kind stranger who'd taken her in. He was someone with power and connections and the ability to do things that most people couldn't. Have you? She started, then hesitated. Have I what? Have you done that before? Made someone stop? Joon-seok held her gaze. Yes. The single word hung between them. Amara should have been frightened. Instead, she felt an unexpected surge of gratitude. Whatever Joon-seok was, whatever he did in that locked office, he was using his power to protect her. Thank you, she said quietly. You keep thanking me. Because I keep meaning it. Something shifted in Joon-seok's expression. A softening, a letting down of the careful guard he maintained. He took a step closer, close enough that Amara could smell his cologne. Something subtle and expensive. Amara, he said, her name a question and a statement all at once. She didn't step back. Yes. You're not a burden. You're not an obligation. I want you to understand that. Then what am I? He reached out slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted to. When she didn't, his hand came up to cup her face gently. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Amara's breath caught. You're someone who makes this apartment feel less empty, he said softly. Someone who reminds me that there's more to life than work and control and maintaining walls. Amara's heart was racing. She'd been attracted to him from the start, though she tried to ignore it. Tried to tell herself it was just gratitude, just the natural response to someone who'd saved her. But standing this close, feeling the warmth of his hand on her face, she knew it was more than that. Joon-seok, she whispered. His phone rang. They both jumped slightly, the spell broken. Joon-seok stepped back, his expression closing off again as he answered the call. He listened for a moment, his jaw tightening. I'll be right there, he said curtly, ending the call. What's wrong? Amara asked. Nothing you need to worry about. Just business. But the tension in his shoulders told a different story. He grabbed his jacket from where he'd draped it over a chair. I need to go out. It might be late when I get back. Is it dangerous? He paused at the door. No more dangerous than usual. That wasn't reassuring. After he left, Amara tried to distract herself with a book, but she couldn't focus. She kept thinking about that moment in the kitchen, about the way he'd looked at her, about what might have happened if the phone hadn't rung. She was still awake at midnight when she heard voices in the hallway outside the apartment. Low and urgent. She crept to the door of the guest suite and listened. Needs stitches. I'm fine. It's just a scratch. Amara recognized Joon-seok's voice. Without thinking, she opened the door and stepped into the hallway. Joon-seok stood there with two of his security team, his jacket gone and his white shirt torn and bloodstained. There was a cut on his shoulder, still bleeding. Oh my God! Amara breathed. Joon-seok's eyes met hers, and she saw frustration flash across his face. I told you I'd be late. Go back to bed. You're bleeding. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Amara looked at the security guards. Do you have a first aid kit? One of them nodded and disappeared, returning moments later with a comprehensive medical kit. Amara took it and gestured to the living room. Sit down. Amara, sit down. To her surprise, Joon-seok complied, lowering himself onto the sofa. The guards retreated to give them privacy, though they didn't leave entirely. Amara knelt beside him and carefully helped him out of his shirt. The cut was on his upper shoulder, not deep but long enough to need attention. There were also bruises forming on his ribs and what looked like old scars on his back. Thin lines that spoke of a violent past. "What happened?" she asked softly, opening the first aid kit. "A business disagreement. With knives. Sometimes negotiations get physical." Amara cleaned the wound carefully, her hands steady despite the turmoil in her chest. This was the reality of who Joon-seok was. Not just a man with security teams and expensive tastes, but someone who lived in a world where business disagreements left you bleeding. "This is going to sting," she warned, applying antiseptic. Joon-seok didn't flinch, though she saw his jaw tighten. As she worked, bandaging the cut, she was acutely aware of his proximity, of the warmth of his skin under her fingers, of the trust implicit in him allowing her to do this. "There," she said finally. "You should probably see a doctor, but that should hold for now." "Thank you." Amara sat back on her heels, studying his face. In the dim lighting, he looked tired and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "Will you tell me the truth about what you do?" Joon-seok was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low. "I run an organization that operates outside conventional business structures. We handle sensitive transactions, provide security for people who can't go to the police, settle disputes that can't be settled legally. You're in the Mafia." That's an oversimplification, but yes. Essentially, Amara should have been shocked, should have been scared. Instead, she felt like pieces of a puzzle were finally clicking into place. "Does it bother you?" Joon-seok asked. "Knowing what I am?" She thought about it honestly. "It should. But all I can think is that you've been kinder to me than anyone I've ever known. You've protected me when you had no reason to. You've made me feel safe for the first time in years. Whatever else you are, you've been good to me." Amara. Her name was rough in his throat. "You deserve better than getting tangled up in my world." "Maybe. But I'm already tangled up in it, aren't I?" Joon-seok reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch gentle despite the violence that still marked his body. "I'm trying to protect you. From your ex. From my world. From everything that could hurt you. What if I don't want to be protected from you?" The question hung in the air between them. Joon-seok's eyes searched hers, looking for doubt or fear. But Amara knew what she felt. This man, this dangerous man with his controlled exterior and hidden depths, had shown her more genuine care than anyone she'd ever known. "You don't know what you're saying," Joon-seok said, but his hand was still in her hair, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "I know exactly what I'm saying." He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, his lips brushed against hers in a kiss that was gentle and questioning. Amara answered by pressing closer, her hands coming up to rest against his chest, careful of his injury. The kiss deepened, becoming something more urgent. Joon-seok's arms came around her, pulling her against him, and Amara felt something inside her crack open. All the fear and loneliness and pain she'd been carrying for so long, releasing in the safety of his embrace. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Joon-seok rested his forehead against hers. "This is a bad idea," he whispered. "Probably. You should walk away." "I don't want to." He pulled back enough to look at her, his eyes intense. "If you stay, if this becomes real, my world becomes your world. The danger, the uncertainty, all of it. Your world already saved me," Amara said. "I'll take my chances." Joon-seok kissed her again, and this time there was nothing gentle about it. It was passion and promise and all the things they'd both been holding back. When they finally separated, he stood and held out his hand. "Come with me." Amara took his hand, and he led her to his bedroom, the one room in the apartment she hadn't entered. Like everything else, it was elegantly appointed, but she barely noticed the decor. She was focused entirely on the man beside her. They spent that night together, finding comfort and connection in each other. And when Amara woke the next morning in Joon-seok's arms, watching the sunrise paint the city in shades of gold, she felt like she'd finally found something she didn't even know she'd been looking for. A place where she belonged. The next week passed in a haze of tentative happiness. Amara and Joon-seok didn't hide their relationship anymore. They cooked together, ate together, fell asleep together. He still left for work during the day, still came home sometimes with new bruises or that particular tension that spoke of difficult negotiations. But he was gentler with her than she'd imagined someone in his position could be. He also kept his promise about her ex. Amara learned, bit by bit, how Joon-seok's people had been handling the situation. The missing persons report had been quietly buried. Her ex's inquiries had been met with dead ends at every turn. And when he tried to push harder, he'd received a visit from some very serious men who'd made it clear that continuing his search would be extremely unwise for his career and his health. He stopped looking, Joon-seok told her one evening as they sat on the sofa. Amara curled against his side. My people confirmed it today. He's telling everyone you left the country. Amara felt a weight lift from her chest. It's really over? It's really over. She turned to look at him. How can you be sure? Because I made sure he understood the consequences of not stopping. And because men like him are ultimately cowards. When faced with real power, they fold. His arm tightened around her. You're free, Amara. Free. The word felt foreign and wonderful. For the first time in years, she wasn't looking over her shoulder. Wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Wasn't afraid. Thank you, she whispered, pressing a kiss to his jaw. What have I told you about thanking me? That I do it too much. But I mean it every time. Joon-seok shifted so he could look at her properly. What will you do now? Now that you're free? It was a question Amara had been avoiding. Because freedom meant choices, and choices meant potentially leaving this suspended moment they'd been living in. I don't know, she admitted. I need to find work, build a life. I can't just hide in your apartment forever. Why not? She laughed. Because that's not real life. Because I need to be able to take care of myself. You can do all of that and still stay here. Joon-seok's expression was serious. I'm not asking you to be dependent on me. I'm asking you to build your life from a place of safety. With you. Yes, with me. He cupped her face in his hands. I know this happened fast. I know it's unconventional. But I haven't felt this way about anyone in, maybe ever. You make me want to be more than what I am. You make me want to build something beyond my work. Amara's heart swelled. I feel the same way. But I'm scared. Of what? Of this being too good to be true. Of waking up one day and finding out it was all temporary. Joon-seok kissed her forehead gently. Nothing about this is temporary. Not for me. Before Amara could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. I need to take this. It's important. He stepped away to answer, and Amara watched the tension return to his shoulders as he listened to whoever was on the other end. When he hung up, his expression was grim. What's wrong? She asked. There's a situation I need to handle. It might take a few days. Days? Where are you going? Busan. There's a complication with one of our operations there. He came back to sit beside her. I don't want to leave you, but this can't wait. Then go. I'll be fine here. The security team will stay. If you need anything. Joon-seok. Amara took his hand. I'll be okay. I'm not helpless. He smiled slightly. No. You're not. Then his expression grew serious. But promise me you won't leave the apartment while I'm gone. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me immediately. I promise. He left early the next morning, kissing her goodbye before the sun was up. Amara tried not to worry, but the apartment felt emptier without him. Larger. Less like a home and more like the fortress it actually was. She spent the first day reading and trying to plan her next steps. She needed to think about her future, about what kind of work she could do, what kind of life she wanted to build. But every plan seemed to circle back to Joon-seok, to the question of how a relationship with someone in his world could possibly work long-term. The second day, she was restless. She paced the apartment, looked out at the city, and wished she could at least go for a walk. But she'd promised to stay inside, and she wouldn't break that promise. On the third day, everything changed. Amara was in the kitchen making coffee when she heard raised voices from the building's hallway. The security guards who were stationed outside the apartment door were talking to someone, their tones sharp and warning. Then she heard a voice that made her blood freeze. "I know she's in there. You can't keep me from my girlfriend." Her ex. Amara's hands started shaking so hard she nearly dropped her coffee cup. He'd found her. Despite everything Joon-seok had done, despite all the warnings and threats, he'd found her. The security guards were handling it, she told herself. They wouldn't let him in. She was safe. But then she heard something that sounded like a struggle. A crash. Someone shouting. Without thinking, Amara grabbed her phone and called Joon-seok. He answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "He's here," she whispered. "My ex. He's outside the apartment. Your guards are. I don't know what's happening, but I heard fighting. Lock yourself in the bedroom. Now." Joon-seok's voice was hard and commanding. "I'm calling for backup. Don't open the door for anyone except my head of security, Lee. No one else. Do you understand?" "Yes. I'm coming back. I'll be there as soon as I can." Amara ran to the bedroom and locked the door. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She could hear sounds from the hallway. More voices, more movement. Was he getting closer? Were the guards still holding him back? Minutes passed like hours. Then she heard the apartment door open. Amara! Her ex's voice, calling her name like he had in the parking garage all those weeks ago. "I know you're here. Stop hiding from me." He was inside. Oh God, he was inside the apartment. Amara looked around frantically for something. Anything she could use to defend herself. She grabbed a heavy lamp from the bedside table and pressed herself against the wall beside the door. Footsteps approached down the hallway. The bedroom door handle rattled. "Open the door, Amara. We need to talk." His voice was so familiar, that same tone he'd used 1,000 times before. Reasonable on the surface, threatening underneath. The tone that had convinced her for years that she was the problem, that she was the one being unreasonable. But she wasn't that person anymore. "Go away," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "You don't belong here. Don't be ridiculous. You belong with me. Whatever this man told you, whatever he promised you, it's a lie. I'm the one who loves you. That's not love. It never was." The door handle rattled harder. "Open this door right now." "No." Something heavy hit the door. He was trying to break it down. Amara gripped the lamp tighter, her mind racing. The door was solid, but how long would it hold? Then she heard new voices. More men moving fast. Commands being shouted. The pounding on the door stopped. There was a scuffle, her ex's voice rising in protest, then being cut off. More footsteps, then silence. A knock on the door, gentle this time. "Ms. Amara? It's Lee. You can come out. It's safe." Amara's legs felt like water, but she forced herself to move to the door and unlock it. Lee stood there, Joon-seok's head of security. His expression professionally neutral despite the chaos that must have just occurred. "Is he gone?" she asked. "He's being dealt with. He won't be back." "How did he get in?" "The guards." He had false credentials. Claimed to be a building inspector. By the time we realized, he'd gotten past the first checkpoint. Lee's jaw tightened. "It won't happen again. I've doubled the security." Amara nodded numbly. Lee guided her to the living room and made her sit down. Someone brought her water. The apartment was full of security personnel, all moving with purpose, securing the space. Her phone rang. "Joon-seok, are you hurt?" His voice was tight with barely controlled emotion. "No. I'm okay." "Lee got here in time. I'm 2 hours away. I'm driving as fast as I can." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." There was something raw in his voice. "I promised you'd be safe. I failed you. You didn't fail me." "I'm okay." "Really?" But she wasn't, not really. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The apartment that had felt like a sanctuary now felt compromised. Her ex had been inside, had walked through these rooms, had tried to get to her. When Joon-seok finally arrived, he burst through the door like a storm. His eyes found her immediately, and he crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry. I should have been here." Amara clung to him, finally letting herself break down. "He found me. Even after everything, he found me. And now he's going to wish he hadn't." There was something dark and final in Joon-seok's tone. He pulled back to look at her, his hands gentle as they cupped her face, checking for any sign of injury. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "What I should have done from the beginning. I'm going to make sure he never bothers you again. Ever. Joon-seok, trust me. Please." Amara looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. Whatever he was planning, it would be final. And some part of her, the part that was tired of running, tired of being afraid, felt nothing but relief. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." Joon-seok kissed her, a kiss that was both gentle and possessive. When he pulled away, his expression had shifted to the cold, controlled mask she'd seen that first night in the car. "Lee," he called. "We need to have a conversation with our guest." The next few hours passed in a blur. Joon-seok disappeared with his security team, leaving Amara in the apartment with 2 guards stationed inside the door. She didn't know what was happening, didn't want to know the details, but she could imagine. When Joon-seok finally returned, it was after midnight. He looked exhausted but satisfied. "It's done," he said simply. "What does that mean?" "It means he signed documents terminating any legal connection to you. It means he signed a legally binding agreement to never contact you, never search for you, never speak your name again. It means that if he violates any of these terms, he loses everything. His job, his reputation, his freedom. And it means he understands that the men who enforce these agreements are very serious about their work." He agreed to all that? He was motivated to cooperate. Amara didn't ask how. She didn't need to. "So it's really over?" "It's really over." Joon-seok pulled her close. "He can't touch you now. No one can." Amara felt something inside her finally release, the last thread of fear that had been holding her captive for years. She was free. Truly, completely free. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you decide what you want your life to look like. And I hope—" He paused, vulnerability flickering across his face. "I hope I'm part of it." Amara smiled, reaching up to kiss him. "You're the best part of it. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story. Drop a comment below telling me what you think happens next for Amara and Joon-seok. And if you loved this story, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. The weeks that followed were a period of rebuilding. Amara started seeing a therapist, working through years of trauma and control. She began looking for work, eventually finding a position at a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors, using her experience to help others who were where she'd been. Joon-seok supported her in every way, but he also gave her space to find herself again. He never tried to control her choices, never made her feel like she owed him anything. Instead, he became her partner in the truest sense. Someone who walked beside her, not in front of or behind her. Their relationship deepened and evolved. Amara learned more about his world, about the complex web of loyalty and power he navigated daily. She met some of his associates, people who looked at her with curiosity and respect because Joon-seok had made it clear she was important to him. And slowly, the apartment that had started as a hiding place became a home. 6 months after that rainy night in the parking garage, Amara stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Seoul. It was raining again, but this time she wasn't running. She was watching the city lights reflect off the wet streets, a cup of tea warm in her hands, wearing comfortable clothes in a space that felt like hers. Joon-seok came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How strange life is. How one terrible night led to this. Do you regret it? Any of it?" Amara turned in his arms to face him. I regret the years I wasted being afraid. But everything that happened that night? Finding your car? Meeting you? No, I don't regret any of that. Good. He kissed her softly. Because I don't either. Even though I complicated your very controlled, organized life? Especially because of that. You showed me that there's more to life than control and power. You showed me what it means to care about someone more than I care about my reputation or my organization. That's very romantic for a mafia boss. He smiled. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. Amara laughed, and it felt good. Free. Like all the laughter she'd been holding back for years could finally escape. They stood there together, watching the rain, and Amara thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. Terrified, running, hiding in the back of a stranger's car. That woman had been so broken, so convinced she'd never be safe or happy again. But she'd been wrong, because sometimes safety came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the person you needed most was someone you never planned to meet. Sometimes love grew in the darkness, stronger for having survived it. I love you, she said suddenly. Joon-seok's arms tightened around her. I love you too. More than I knew I was capable of. What do you think happens next? For us, whatever we want to happen. He turned her to face him fully. You're not hiding anymore, Amara. You're not running. You're living. And I want to build that life with you, whatever it looks like. Even though your world is dangerous, I'll always keep you safe. That's a promise I'll never break. Amara believed him. Not because she was naive. Not because she thought love conquered everything, but because she'd seen his actions match his words every single day since that first night. Then I want to stay, she said. Here, with you, building something real. Joon-seok kissed her, and in that kiss was everything. Promise and passion and the certainty that they'd found something worth fighting for. The rain continued to fall on Seoul, washing the streets clean. And in a penthouse high above the city, two people who'd both been running from their pasts finally stopped and chose to build a future together. It wouldn't be easy. His world would always carry danger. Her healing would be a journey, not a destination. But they'd face it together. The man who'd learned to open his carefully controlled heart, and the woman who'd learned she was strong enough to claim her freedom. And that, Amara thought as Joon-seok held her close, was its own kind of perfect. The story of how she'd hidden in a mafia boss's car to escape her nightmare had become the story of how she'd found her way home. Not to a place, but to a person. To herself. To a life she'd chosen. Not one that had been chosen for her. She was finally beautifully free. And she was exactly where she wanted to be.